Kwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, broadcaster, journalist, podcaster, and entrepreneur. And in this week's episode of Ghana in Focus, opioids, a health threat to Ghana and West Africa. Giving you the details of that. So what's the theme for this week's show? Opioid, the health scare threatening Ghana and West Africa. So before we get into the show, if you like what you hear, please share it to your friends, family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Fix on YouTube. Subscribe to Ghana African Fix on Spotify. We want to get as many followers on both channels as possible by the end of the year. So we're looking for a target of 1,000 followers on Spotify. So far we've got 600. So thank you to all those who are following me on Spotify. And we're looking to get at least 100 on Facebook, on YouTube. So far, we've got about 20. So if you haven't subscribed to Ghana African Fix on YouTube, please do. It's free. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Just look out for Ghana African Fix on YouTube and hit the notification bell, meaning that every time we upload a new podcast, YouTube will notify you of this. All right. So let's get into a podcast looking at opioids, a threat to Ghana and West Africa. And so, if you call, I talked about health, generally speaking, about a couple of months ago, saying how, African people, Black people are dying at a younger age because we're not looking after ourselves. And, as a result of this, we're getting diseases like hypertension, sickle cell, high blood pressure, low sugar, diabetes type 1, type 2, we're getting, cardiovascular issues, etc. And a lot of that is to do with what we're eating, what we're not eating, but also lifestyle habits as well. And also in the environment that we're in, particularly if you're in the West. So talked about that. But what I'm looking at today is that this dangerous, and this is obviously health as well, because it's killing a lot of our young people who are taking these opioids. There's a massive problem with opioids, not just in Ghana, but also in Nigeria, and also La Côte d'Ivoire. And if this is not checked, then a lot of youth will be dead, and that's going to hamper our development as well. So this is why I'm doing this important health podcast about opioids. But the sad thing about this opioid thing is that there's two things. BBC did an investigation into this, and I'll leave you the article, in the footnote so you can read it for yourself. But the stupid thing about this is that Indians are behind this opioid. Opioid is a very, very addictive drug, which has many chemicals that a lot of young people don't know the after effects are, but it can lead to death at the worst case scenario. And, best case scenario is if it's such a thing, it can make you high for quite a period of time, but you get addicted to it, and you may end up committing crimes, to feed the habit of taking opioids. So this is very, very serious indeed, and this is why I'm doing this podcast, because many young people in Ghana, West Africa, don't know that this drug made by Indians is being delivered to us, unregulated and no licenses, but it's been promoted as the guise of a bona fide drug, which unfortunately has massive side effects. Worst case scenario is death, right? And it's been mainly targeted to the African youth, Ghanaian youth. So we have to ask ourselves, why would somebody in India, why would somebody in India make a drug specifically aimed at African market, in this case, West Africa? If there was not an ulterior motive or an ulterior agenda to making this drug. Because there's a video clip that the guy that is in the article that I will leave for you to see for yourself. The guy is aware, this is an Indian guy called Sharma, he is aware that this drug is very addictive and is dangerous. But as far as he's concerned, it's business because he's making money out of exploiting naive African people. And also, what's also disturbing about this is that our regulatory bodies in Ghana is the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, right? Because of getting bribe from this Indian man and his cohorts, they are overlooking or not understanding the nature, the dangerous nature, or the toxic nature of these so-called opioids that they are letting into the country. Yeah. And I've talked about many times how corrupt our ports are, particularly under the last Ghanaian government under Akufo-Addo. Very, very corrupt people at the ports. Obviously, now with a new government in place, we hope that things will change and that the people working at the ports are robust in their dealings with any person importing goods into Ghana. And so, you know, this article that I will leave also explains to you also how addictive, or before I get to it, like I said, why is this Indian guy selling opioids to West Africa? You can't do that to sell to Asia or Europe, yeah? And apparently, some of the chemicals that are found in this opioids have been banned in Europe, which is obviously why you can't sell it in Europe. So if it's been banned in Europe, why hasn't African countries, yeah, for example, Ghana, why haven't they banned this drug from coming to Ghana? If it's banned in the EU, the European Union, because they know of the toxicity and the bad nature of this drug, or the chemicals rather, that go into making these opioids, why haven't they done the same in Ghana and Nigeria and La Côte d'Ivoire, where this opioid crisis is in place? Yeah. So it tells you that we're not on the case and we're falling asleep because this opioids coming into Ghana, coming into Nigeria, coming to La Côte d'Ivoire is literally killing our youth and making them docile and high. And apparently, again, you read the article for yourself, a lot of young people now are mixing this opioid with these energy drinks to get even more high. Yeah. So what's that producing? That's producing a generation of young people who are permanently high. Yeah. And because of the addictive nature of this, right? Like I said, they'll stoop into prostitution, stoop into criminal activities just to get money to feed their habit. So this also poses, right, a social, economic, as well as health time bomb in those three countries. Yeah. But my main thing is that this Indian man, his agenda basically is to kill Africans, because obviously this drug is killing African people. Why would you want to, kill African people to make money? Think about it now. And that's a business. So like I said, him is business. So that tells you, like I said, that people want to kill Africans, whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not. Read the article and look at the video, yeah, because he's selling drugs to Africans that have, in essence, been banned in Europe, and he couldn't sell that in Asia as well, because the markets in Asia, i.e., China, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, etc., are very, very well regulated, and you can't bribe your way there. However, because of our lapse win, he's seen an opportunity in Africa, in this case, West Africa, to market his dangerous, deviant drugs under the guise of, pharmaceuticals to West Africa. Yeah. So like I said, there's a plan to kill us. And this drug made by this Indian guy is a plan to kill us, because if it wasn't a plan to kill us, then why is not selling it in Asia? Why is he selling it in North America or South America or Australia? Because he can't. Because the regulations are very strong and you can't bribe your way through in those territories. But in Ghana, where our borders are lapsed, are porous, where there's corrupt officials working at the FDA and the ports, you can do that very, very easily. And so, like I said, some wicked people, in this case, this Indian guy called Sharma, is making opioids in his factory in India and then marketing them in such a way to sell it to us in Ghana, West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, La Côte d'Ivoire, that has a dangerous effect on our youth. Again, we saw this with COVID, that COVID was made to kill people. And, you know, I did the video a long time ago about 21, 22, that got taken down by Spotify because I said that the vaccine or the virus rather was planned, yeah, and also the vaccine itself has proven to be a dangerous thing because people have died taking the vaccine. I'm sure you know many people, you know, you listen to this. I'm sure you know people, friends, family, associates that have died or have had serious side effects taking this COVID vaccine. Yeah. But when the vaccine came out, people believed these so-called scientists and took the vaccine. That now, 4 years later, has now killed our people. So the same way that COVID was used as a weapon to reduce population, this is the same way that this opioid now, made in India, yeah, is being sent, particularly to West Africa, to kill our youth because Africa has Africa is the only continent on the world that has a youth population greater than the adult population. So in Africa, over 75% of the population is under 35. Yeah. And so if you are making opioids targeted at the youth, that can make them high, or worst case scenario, kill them, right? You are literally destroying, right, 75% of African youth or of our population. So there's a eugenics agenda. This Indian guy, Sharma, right? This is practicing eugenics because this opioid tablet or pill that is selling in Ghana, in Nigeria, in the Côte d'Ivoire, targeting specifically African youth, is eugenics. Yeah, because the youth are hooked upon it, right? Makes them high, and they want some more, and eventually it kills them or puts them in a serious, hypergenic state. So I'm saying to the authorities in Ghana, authorities in Nigeria, the authorities in Côte d'Ivoire, do not let these wicked Indian businessmen, right, deceive you, trick you with corruption and bribes because you at the port want to make some quick cash for yourself, not knowing that there's a wider eugenics agenda to kill African people, particularly our youth. Yeah. And so our bodies, our borders, and also our health bodies, like in Ghana, the FDA, Food and Drug Authorities, have to be on the ball, have to be on the case to ensure that these drugs don't these drugs don't come into the country, and B, if they do come into the country, test them for their vitality and their ability, and to test them the essence of these drugs, because apparently no test is being done. This is why they're ending up on the streets of Accra, Kumasi, Lagos, Abidjan, etc., because the food and drug agencies in these countries are not doing the jobs properly. And so I'm not going to go on about this, but you can read the article for yourself. And there's a couple of videos there that you can see about the wickedness of this Indian man who only cares about money. He doesn't care about African people. He doesn't care about African lives. To him, Black lives don't matter. All he's concerned about is making money at our expense. So I'm saying to our people, right, there's an agenda to kill African people. So we've got to be circumspect. We've got to be on the ball. We've got to be very, very discerning when these kind of drugs come into the country, because there's a long history of illicit drugs that come into the country. For example, in a BBC Radio 5 Live in the UK, they did a documentary about 20 years ago talking about anti-malaria drugs, right? It's calling How Safe Is Your Drugs? and they found that 75% of the anti-malarial drugs that were coming into West Africa, Ghana as well, were fake. Yeah. Why would you, as an upright, conscious person, why would you import or why would you sell fake malaria tablets, anti-malaria tablets, right, to people if there's not a wicked agenda and a false agenda behind that? Yeah. So we've got to be careful as Africans. We've got to be careful out there and not believe everything that we see from India or that comes from India or the West, because historically, and this case is proven it, there is a very ulterior and nefarious motive when these people want to come and sell their drugs to us as African people. All right, so hope you've enjoyed this edition of Ghanaian Focus. Please subscribe to the show. We're on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. Please subscribe. It's free to subscribe. And in next week's edition of African Focus, we're looking at Sudan. I was part of a demonstration in the UK about the situation in Sudan the other day. So I'm going to upload that so that you can see for yourself. And we'll talk about the wider issue of the Sudan war and why you're not seeing much of that in your media. We all know about Palestine, but a lot of us do not know about the ongoing war and genocide in the Sudan. So look out for that in next week's edition of Africa in Focus. And so for myself, Kwame, and from all the crew here on Ghana in Focus, is thank you very much for listening. And we see you next week for some more great content coming out of Ghana and from Africa.